today I thought I would do another story time video. I don't know, I like story time videos, and I get a lot of questions about this actually, and I always was like, oh, I don't want to answer because I don't want to bring it up because it's in the past. Oh, I don't want to answer this because I don't want to give anyone any ideas like on how to become a stripper and all this stuff like that. So people always ask like, how did you get into stripping? How do you become a stripper? Some girls even say, oh my gosh, I want to be a stripper. Like, how do I get started? So this is not really meant to be like, oh my gosh, get into stripping. This is how you get started. I'm just like sharing my story because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are curious. It makes sense. Like, I don't know, people are curious, and I think my story of getting into stripping is like a lot like others, but also like very different than other people's. So basically, like, I never really like thought I'd become a stripper. Like, I used to watch movies like Striptease with Demi Moore and stuff, of course, but like, you know, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I want to be a stripper when I grow up. Like, I don't know, it wasn't me, and it wasn't like how I was brought up to be like, oh, it's okay to be a stripper, like that kind of stuff. But anyways, I moved to Hollywood, and I've told this story a million times. So I moved to Hollywood when I was 18. A month after college, I started college, I quit it. My freshman year, I was in community college, I just quit. And went to Hollywood, and I was living with my dad when I went to college, and he was like pretty much supporting me. My dad had, you know, supported my brother through college, and so, but since I quit, he didn't want to support me, and I wanted to be an actress on The Greg Behrendt Show, which is a show that I did one time, and then they kept asking me to come back, and my dad wouldn't let me take off school, so I ended up just like quitting and just like wanting to do this show. Excuse me. A little sippy zip. So when the show got canceled, literally like 6 months later, I kind of didn't have any money coming in. And at least not what I was used to getting on that show, because I got like a $2,000 check every time I was on that show, which was like a pretty big deal. And for me, I was living in this like little apartment that cost like $895 a month. Like, it was just like with everything. So that was a pretty big deal for me, and I worked it like twice a month, so it was a pretty big deal. Plus I had like other acting like background jobs and stuff to bring in, you know, a couple hundred here and there. So when all that kind of ended, after it was like about a year, because I stopped kind of booking things. I don't know what it was, if I was getting old already, I don't know what it was, but I stopped booking things, and the guy I was seeing had suggested stripping because he loved strip clubs, and he was kind of like my friend first, and then we kind of dated. So it's kind of like, it wasn't like he was my boyfriend being like, you should be a stripper, but he's like, you know, I go to strip clubs all the time, there's really nothing like wrong with them. He kind of convinced me that it was okay, and like a lot of people do it, it's like what people do in LA, that sort of thing. So I was thinking maybe it is, you know, I just know from what I saw in movies and stuff, so I was like, well, maybe it is what people do out here. So I went, and I was terrified because I was really self-conscious. I was about a good 40 pounds lighter than I am now. If you go watch my videos from 2007, that's about the weight I was when I started stripping. So I was a lot lighter than I am now, but I was still so self-conscious, and I actually didn't get turned down from a club for my weight until a couple of years later. Like, I quit and then I started again, so I'm going to tell you both stories of like how I became a stripper both times. So the first time I started like that, you know, he got me in, he's like, oh, go to 7th Veil, like, this is the owner's name you should just ask for, be super professional, be like, look, I'm looking for the owner, I'm looking to be a dancer, like, get this going. So I went, and it was easy, and I got it, but it freaked me out because like the second or third night, someone had actually recognized me from The Greg Behrendt Show without really saying it. They're kind of like, your voice sounds familiar. Do we know each other? Have I seen you on TV? And I was like, oh! So for me, being 18, 19, I wanted to be an actress, and I did not want like someone to come in and be like, oh, I know you from this and you're a stripper. Like, ew, no, bye. Which later on, actually, it's so funny, later on it actually ended up being like a cooler thing for me, because I got to meet these guys that were like directors, and I got to be like friends with them and like go on sets and stuff. So it ended up like working out sometimes, and it's like, I don't know, it is a good way to like meet people, but you will have that stigma of being a stripper. I think to this day, even some of those people who I consider friends in the entertainment industry, I still think they look at me as like the stripper they met. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what I do after that. So that's always kind of like a stigma, of course. But yeah, so I worked at 7th Veil, and I just quit there like after a few days, and I ended up working down the street at Body Shop, which is another kind of like elite Hollywood strip club. So these are really big strip clubs. They are full nudity, so no alcohol being served, but you can be 18 to dance there, which is what I needed at the club, and I got really good tips. And then I got sick and moved back with my dad, and then to move back out of my dad's house, I started stripping again in City of Industry, and that was like about 45 minutes from my dad's house. And it was called Deja Vu, and Deja Vu was this kind of the same way. I just like called ahead and said, hey, are you like hiring dancers? Like, we're always hiring dancers, which is like a thing that all strip clubs are always hiring. So if you really want to be a stripper, like every strip club is always hiring. Like, they always want new dancers. Like, they can never have enough dancers because dancers don't show up, dancers don't come in, you don't really have a set schedule. So, and the last club I worked at, which was Godfather, so when I talk about quite frequently, because I worked there the longest and I probably made the most money there, always like called me in, but none of these really called me in. But with Body Shop and Seventh Veil, I wasn't making a ton of money. I would say like a couple thousand a month until I got into other things. But stripping alone, I mean maybe like $1,500 a month, like not that crazy. And then City of Industry was another really struggle for me because there was a lot of blondes, a lot of Caucasians. So what I ended up doing the final time I got back into stripping, so I moved out of my dad's house and I actually was roommates with my mom, and I got the Eminem videos, so I was getting a ton of music videos and a ton of work where I was like, and I was doing YouTube at the time, so I was thinking maybe I don't have to strip. So I kind of stopped for a little while, but then about a year passed and I went back, and this time I was a little bit bigger. I was maybe 20 pounds lighter than I am now, maybe 10, I don't know, something around there. I was a little bigger, and I went into Spearmint Rhino. I remember this so vividly. I went into Spearmint Rhino, which is a pretty big chain of strip clubs. I went in there, and the one in Van Nuys, and I was thinking, okay, well, because I live close to it, I was like, oh, well, it's Van Nuys, like, they're gonna hire me, like, of course, like, and I've never been denied up to this point. By the way, the hiring process, like, for Seventh Veil, he literally, like, just opened my shirt and looked at my boobs and was like, okay, you can start. Like, it was so weird. Deja Vu, you did have to dance on stage, and that was super nerve-wracking because it was huge, and the stage was huge, and the pole rotated, and I wasn't used to spinning poles, so I was extremely nervous. So like the first time you didn't have to actually like show that you could get naked and go on stage at that club, but at the other club, so it's definitely different. So with Spearmint Rhino, same thing. I had to go up on stage, only to be humiliated when I came back, and she's like, okay, well, you're just a little too big for our club, and I was like, that was like the first time I kind of heard that like out loud and like for a job. I mean, clearly it's stripping, so like I guess if they don't like your body, but let me just say, my body, I had gained about 20 pounds after that, like throughout the years, even working as a stripper at Godfather's, and like my body got me so many dances. So they're missing out on this whole clientele that likes the curvy and thick. So yeah, I was always at like different stages, because even when I was like thinner, like 150, I was still like the bigger stripper, but you know, whatever. I wasn't like, you know, whatever. And then at the final club I worked at, Godfather's, I mean, they literally had strippers that were like 500 pounds, like, and it was like, no shame, no tea, no shame, no nothing, and no judgment, because a lot of guys were like into that. They wanted a thick girl, and I was like, well, this is cool. So that was like kind of the club that you knew would have thick girls, and they were just more casual, down-to-earth girls, but at the same time, like, you made more money because there were so many different types. So I started at the Godfather's in, I want to say Sherman Oaks, but it was a little further down than Sherman Oaks. It was like right on the same street I lived on. And I started there, and I actually had to go down to the downtown offices and fill out a bunch of paperwork. Like, it was like a lot stricter. And then I went in, and there was a manager, Eric, who was like literally like 20 at the time. Like, he was so young. And I didn't have to do a thing. He's just like, oh, well, you can just start if you want. Like, what? Like, literally just hired and not having to dance. So you don't have to dance. The only time I danced was at one audition. No, two, sorry. Spearmint Rhino and Deja Vu. So those were like, those are chains though. But if it's more like a CD or like just like a one-off strip club, like, you probably won't have to audition. They probably will just take you. So that's kind of how I got into stripping. Both times I of course needed the money. I wasn't going to school, and I wasn't, you know, like a single mom or anything like that, but I needed the money, and stripping is a fast way to do it, but at the same time, like, it's kind of like you're going fishing when you become a stripper, because it's like some days you just wait around the whole club and you only work off tips and stuff. So sometimes you just wait around the whole club like for hours before you get a dance. Sometimes you won't even get a dance, so it's definitely hit or miss. But yeah, that's how I got into stripping, and so I guess that was 3 different times that I got into it. And so I guess the main thing is just go in there with like confidence, just be like professional. Like, look, even if you've never danced before, like, here I'm like giving tips. It's not what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be tips, but like, I just went in there and like was like professional, and I was just like, dude, I need this dance, gotta get it. But having said that, I have applied the same stripper mentality, morale to real life, to my everyday life, that I just go into places and say like, hire me. Or if I see someone, I'm like, you're gonna like me. This is me. This is Trish. Like, be very unapologetic. If one thing strippers are unapologetic. Like, they're crazy. A lot of them are on drugs. Some of them are pushy, very aggressive. But if anything else, they are unapologetically who they are in that sense. So, yeah. So that's how I got into stripping. And I don't think I would go back. I am like giving this up to the Lord that I don't have to go back anytime soon. But if I did have to go back to stripping and become a stripper, you know, I think I would definitely go the route of going to a more lesser known club, or maybe not so popular. So if you see like a bunch of billboards in your area for strip clubs, I would not go to that one, and go to one maybe like a little more low key. There was a thing, I don't know if they still have it, but if you look up like strip club reviews, or just type in like your strip club name that you want to go to and look at reviews, you'll see the kind of clientele. That's kind of what I looked at. There was like a strip club like directory at one point for me, and it was like where the dance is dirty, where the girl's pretty, like that kind of stuff. So you kind of knew what club you're going for. So with the internet, it's kind of awesome that you could get reviews. So I got like reviewed with Godfathers, and I knew because at that point I had been turned down because of my weight at the previous one. So I wanted to go somewhere where there was like lower key girls, because at the end of the day there was a ton of like African American Hispanic girls. Like literally one other white girl worked there, but she only came in like once a month, if that. And was not that cute. So you kind of have to go somewhere where there's just variety. There's not ones just like you, because in Hollywood I was a dime a dozen, and there was people with better boobs than me because I didn't have implants at the time. I didn't have implants the first... Actually, I don't think I had implants ever when I was a stripper. Isn't that ironic? Did I? No. I don't think I've ever had implants as a stripper. Now I go and be like, boom, what you got from me? But yeah, that's pretty much it. That was kind of my story. I guess it wasn't like, maybe it wasn't as exciting as I thought or you thought, but yeah, it's pretty simple. And I definitely don't ever recommend stripping to anyone, because at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, like I got into stripping and like for the first few days you're like, this is cool, but honestly you just start feeling worn down. You do start feeling cheap. I always thought, oh, just put me on display, put these for sale, but you do start feeling like cheap and your sense of worth goes down. I started getting more insecure because if I didn't get dances, I would feel really insecure. So at the end of the day, it builds you up for some things, to be strong, to be persistent, but it does tear you down in a lot of other important aspects, like loving yourself and valuing yourself and all that stuff like that. So, you know, at the end of the day, don't become a stripper. I mean, if that's what you have to do, it's what you have to do. If you think, okay, this is what I can do and not be miserable every day, you know, I don't know. It's really, you know, apples and oranges. Like, you know, you could be at a fast food restaurant and be miserable. You could be a stripper and be miserable. It's like kind of... You kind of just have to decide your own life path, but I totally regret it, you know, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it also was part of my journey. So I don't know, a lot of people have been asking, and so I just kind of wanted to like share my little story of it. I do have my book, The Stripper Diaries. It's been out a while on Amazon, but I talk a lot about just more of the actual experiences and customers in that book if you guys are interested. Plus, I think I have a few entries still up on YouTube of The Stripper Diaries, so just type it into YouTube and you should find it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and you know, I'm so open. Oh, I should do an Esther show. I haven't done an Esther show. I was gonna say I'm so open to like answering any questions. This one has just always been like reoccurring, so I always just like made it a point to talk about it. But now I talk about it, so there's out in the open. But I love you guys so much, and girls, just know that there are, even if you don't want to go to college and you have to pay the bills as a struggling actress, there are a ton of other ways. I just was lazy. Don't be lazy like me. I'm here to be like, don't be like me, don't be lazy, but you know, it happens. But I love you guys so much, and thank you guys for watching, and thank you for asking me questions and caring about my answers and caring about my life. It means a lot to me. And I'm going to go ahead and go, but as always, I want to say hi to Rick and Rihanna's, and until next time, here are my kissies for my little baby fishies.